An unprecedented moment after former President Trump is indicted. The news igniting a political firestorm as we get brand new details on what comes next. Trump calling it a political persecution as he reportedly is going to face more than 30 criminal charges over alleged hush money payments. We wait to see the indictment. Former president is expected to be arraigned next Tuesday. Sources telling Fox he will have his mugshot and fingerprints taken, but will not be handcuffed. Trump's attorney vowing to fight back.
You know, when you stretch the law to get someone you don't like, or as a political opponent in this case, it's very hard to ever get that law to come back to its original shape. Today's proof that you could actually pick a target and then try and find a crime, even a crime that's not a crime, because there is no crime here. So I'm telling you, there is no crime. I know the facts, I know the law, and I really want to see where this is going to go.
I don't know.
Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg is facing major backlash for bringing this case in the first place. Bragg being criticized for using an untested legal theory to bring state charges in a federal case involving alleged campaign finance violations. Republicans calling it a political ploy and say they're ready to hold the AG accountable.
They're trying to destroy Donald Trump because they fear him at the ballot box. They're trying to drain him dry.
I think the Democrats know this has nothing to do with the law. They're sending a message.
And it really is a slippery slope when we start indicting our political opponents, particularly active candidates for office. Instead of cleaning up the streets of New York, a George Soros-backed DA is focused on indicting a former president. This is absolutely a political witch hunt through and through.
This was a campaign promise by the DA. He said he would indict the president. He has now done so.
All right, let's discuss Pete Hegseth. Listen, how this plays out, if it takes a year or more, Judge, we'll talk about that, to get to actually a trial. If he's the nominee, he's going to be running for president at the same time being a criminal defendant in a case in New York City.
Yeah, befitting the banana republic we've become. That's happened in other countries around the world where political opponents have been under indictment or facing jail time and they're running for president because elites have decided they're not worthy of that office or they want to get rid of them. But the people back what they tried to do and were thwarted in the process. It's barely worth talking about the merits of this case for ways the judge could talk a lot better than I could.
We don't know, to be fair.
We don't know, but we know what it seems to be about. And it comes from a DA who's made his entire career downgrading felonies to misdemeanors or dismissing cases for criminals, and in this case, desperately reaching for a way to find a felony against a former president who he promised, as you noted, he would go after as a candidate, and he has. We're going to talk about the political fallout from here. That, I think, is the most important piece and probably doesn't work in the Democrats' favor.
Well, Judge, I'm looking ahead here. So there are a lot of pretrial motions and ways that his defense team will try to get rid of this before it ever gets to trial. But how do you think the process is going to go if they get to trial of picking jurors here in New York and holding a trial of somebody who probably is going to be running for president?
I can't even get that far because as a DA and as a former judge who did this for 32 years, this charge is insufficient on its face. If you are charging the falsifying of business records, the statute of limitations is run. If you are bootstrapping it with a federal offense, you don't have that jurisdiction to charge a federal offense. So people are saying this is untested legal theory. This is not untested. This is illegal. And any judge worth his or her salt will dismiss this indictment if it alleges what we suspect based upon the insufficiency of the indictment. So there's a lot of places, a lot of emotions that will be made before we even get to the trial. I don't think we should get that far. I think one of the things that is so incredibly important to realize here is that this is selective prosecution. This is a DA who has taken one of the most revered, one of the most time-honored DA's offices in the nation, the Manhattan DA's office, and turned it into a kangaroo DA's office where they are bringing someone in who was literally running for president on a crime that they allege occurred, that Hillary Clinton could have been charged with 5 times over based on the fact that she used campaign funds and charged them as legal expenses, and it wasn't even her money, with the added addition that she split the nation apart with the Russia collusion delusion. She split families apart. She made Americans fight with each other. But this is simply a continuation of what happened from the time the left saw Donald Trump Trump running. And they got that Steele dossier, and they used it as a basis for a FISA warrant that they re-upped continuously through James Comey and the Department of Justice. That gave us an example, and I called it the antics of a third world country. And now they've come full cycle. So I see this not only as a prosecutor, I see it as a politician, someone who's run for office 5 times. I've run in the state of New York. But as an American, this is the takedown of the American criminal justice system. This is the takedown of America, where the left is literally taking down our republic and turning us into a laughingstock. And finally, let me say one thing. This is the only man that our enemies feared. Donald Trump is the only man that our enemies feared. You know, Putin went in, took Crimea when Obama was there. Putin invades Ukraine when Biden is there. Nobody invaded anywhere when Trump was there. And Americans are eating this president alive.
The judge is warmed up and now ready to go. Okay, you talk about the rest of the world kind of looking at where we're at. The El Salvadoran president said this. It's going to be hard for the U.S. to now lecture us and use arguments about condemning political persecution. So from the outside looking in, Jessica, we now have foreign leaders saying, you can't talk to us about political prosecutions and corruption and that kind of thing, because they're going to point the finger at us and say their impression is that's what this is.
I have nothing against the president of El Salvador. I also know nothing about them. If you have the UK prime minister who says something like that, I'd be a little bit more interested in having that conversation. Where it stands right now, and you're right, Shannon, to continue to caution everyone on this, is that we don't know what's in the indictment. We know that it's supposed to be 30-plus counts, which I think is not what people expected to begin with. We also know that there has been months of new testimony since people like to harken back and say, well, the DOJ didn't go with this and the FEC didn't go with this. There should be new information. If there isn't, shame on Alvin Bragg. And we'll all be saying that Tuesday at 2:22, because he's arraigned at 2:15. And I know that the judge is considering unsealing the indictment ahead of time. So maybe that, for your Saturday night, if you don't want to watch the Final Four, you can do that. But there is a lot of false information flying around about what's gone on here. I've heard this isn't a crime. It is a crime. Donald Trump was an unindicted co-conspirator in what happened with Michael Cohen. He was not prosecuted because he was president of the United States of America. I went back and I looked at the FEC's report on this. The general counsel said it explicitly that this was an illegal campaign contribution. So the choice was not to prosecute, not that something was not done that was inappropriate and was a crime. His own DOJ said unindicted co-conspirator. He was individual number 1 in all of those papers that came out. I'm also hearing a lot about the George Soros-backed DA here. George Soros released a statement. He didn't back Alvin Bragg. He's actually never even talked to Alvin Bragg. And I understand that it's a fun talking point to say that all the liberal DAs in the country are funded by this boogeyman billionaire. But we all know what happened to George Soros in 2018 when he had a pipe bomb sent to his house by a crazy...
This is not about that.
Yes, it is.
We can make criticisms of George Soros.
How far are we going to get off the topic here?
All right, listen.
Really?
I'm sorry. The congresswoman who was on TV said Soros-backed DA. It is inaccurate, and it has put lives in danger. People should just be honest
Everything
about
puts
what's going
lives
on.
in danger, but then when people die, it's
yeah.
like it's not a big deal, right? We get a mass shooting in a school, and whose lives are in danger? Trans, according to the White House. I'm just saying, if you want to go in that direction, we can all do that.
I want to ask you, though, because you mentioned James Comey and some things that went on under his watch.
Just see what he said?
He tweeted, and I think we have the tweet, "It's been a good day." Greg.
Well, I would like to speak about just like the people who are giddy in the media, especially in New York. I have a feeling they've probably never been mugged, because we're witnessing a pretty big trade. We have a DA that chose not to prosecute criminals and devote almost all of his time chasing the great white whale or the great orange whale that is Trump. So there was a trade there. And why is that important? It's because you're seeing a major reframing in the way actually, the way I look at this world. I don't see things left or right anymore. I see things as inside and outside.
Oh, yeah.
There were 2 people that were targeted this week. You couldn't get more opposite between Matt Taibbi and Donald Trump. One, a renegade progressive journalist Another, a renegade Republican president. What do they have in common? They're both on the outside. So this isn't about the left going after the right. It's about the elites going after the outsiders. And if you look at all of the things that we talk about on the show and the things that piss you off, do you know why nothing gets done? Because you're the outsider, right? If you're concerned about the border, if you're concerned about crime, if you're concerned about inflation, and if you happen to like Trump, you're an outsider. Inside elites have no concerns about anything. They don't live in the border states, right? They don't have to worry about crime. They don't have to worry about guns because they got private security. As for Trump, they hate him. They don't care if he was feared by foreign powers. They don't care if he had a good economy. They just don't like him. They kept that. This guy's getting prosecuted because of tweets, because they mentally deranged him. This is the first prosecution based on Trump derangement syndrome. We know that. We know this is political. Don't pretend that this is over an unindicted co-conspirator. That's garbage. Lastly, we have to go back and think about what we miss whenever we see a political witch hunt. There are three things that I remember in my lifetime. One, we can go back to COVID. The first 2 months of COVID, we were doing a Trump impeachment. We lost 2 months. I remember it was on every channel while this weird thing got out of the Pandora's box in China, but we were getting our teeth sunk in Trump theater. Then you go back even further, 9/11. What happened before 9/11? Another political witch hunt. This time it was about a blue dress, right? We didn't see Al-Qaeda coming because we're too busy worrying about the president coming. That's a witch hunt. There are 3 witch hunts right now. There's 9/11, there's COVID. What did we talk about today? What was the big story? All of these techno nerds, right, from Silicon Valley saying the biggest threat in the world, is AI without proper control. Without proper control. Mm-hmm. That hasn't changed. But it's out of the news. That got pushed out of the news because of this. Because we can't get enough of Trump. That's on the media. So, thank you.
This is a family show.
Oh, I'm sorry. What did I do?
You did a great job.
It's a family show.
Fantastic.
Sorry.
The kids
Not
are
anymore.
watching.
You did a great job.
It's 10 o'clock somewhere.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.